GamingBolt presents 14 dark secrets in GTA 5 you probably don't know. Like all Rockstar games, GTA 5 is massive and filled with secrets for players to uncover and find. Some of these are fun to uncover, while others include some neat references to other games and media. Some, however, are not of those varieties. Some are more, well, messed up. They can kind of do a number on unsuspecting players and throw them for a loop. These secrets can be darker and slightly more unnerving. In this feature, we look at 14 of those. Michael's history. For as much time as we spent with Michael DeSanta, or Michael Townley as he used to be in GTA 5, the game never really went out of its way to explicitly give us any details about his past. But if you look a little more carefully, it's all there. Something the game does tell us is that Michael was involved in his very first robbery ever at a pretty young age in 1988 in Carcer City. Something interesting about Carcer City is that it is also where the first manhunt takes place, while we also know that in GTA lore, Liberty City is supposed to be located close to Carcer City. Trevor and his mother. Trevor's mother is part of one of the game's side missions, so while it's true that many people might know about this, it's also entirely possible to just miss this pretty important piece of information about Trevor and his past. It turns out Trevor used to have a pretty tough relationship with his mother, who was involved in everything from alcoholism to other, well, let's call them shady activities, and was also a pretty abusive mother all around. Kind of explains why Trevor went on to become the maniac that we all know him as. Lester. Lester is a pretty important character in GTA 5 and a prominent fixture in the game's story. One of the most recognizable things about him, sadly enough, is his weirdly unexplained inability to be able to walk much. Most of the time he's wheelchair bound, and even for the short distances that he can walk, he has to use a cane. Ever wondered why that is? Well, it turns out Lester suffers from a wasting disease that is slowly rendering his motor functions to, well, stop functioning, which is why his legs don't work the way that they should anymore. Franklin's troubled education. The fact that Franklin, this gun-toting former repo man with the aspirations of becoming a proper gangster, is the moral compass of GTA 5's main trio of protagonists should tell you everything you need to know about how messed up Los Santos is, but oh well, it is what it is. Franklin, as you may have guessed, didn't exactly have a rosy, shiny childhood. He had a pretty troubled past as well. For starters, he was actually kicked out of high school for assaulting a teacher. Is this what led him into a life of crime? Well, probably, but that also brings us to our next point. Franklin's criminal history. We've known from the game itself that Franklin has been in a life of petty crime for a long time, even before he ever met Michael. Most of it, wasn't very successful. For instance, he'd actually already been to jail before the game even started. 5 years before GTA 5's events, Franklin was actually sent to prison. After he got out, he decided to stop indulging in criminal activities, which didn't really work out, now did it? LAMAR and Franklin's aunt. Of course, when you think of Franklin, you think of LAMAR as well, his weird, goofy friend who's always up to no good and is always getting into all sorts of trouble. LAMAR and Franklin met each other in high school, from where, as we've already discussed, Franklin was eventually kicked out. Throughout the game, LAMAR drops hints that he's actually got a thing for Franklin's aunt, who the latter also lives with, but if you look more carefully, there are some infrequent scenes peppered here and there that subtly hint that LAMAR and Franklin's aunt might even be involved in a shady secret affair of sorts. Dr. Friedlander. The fraudulent therapist who goes by the name Dr. Friedlander is an interesting personality to say the least, and we know he's no law-abiding citizen. And this particular piece of info is a pretty damning piece of evidence for that assertion. In Friedlander's office, he has a computer where he keeps a schedule, and through the use of a mod, players can actually view what's on his schedule. One of the most interesting things on there, rob a bank. Pretty neat, I guess. Maybe he could team up with Michael someday then. Aliens. The existence of UFOs in the world of GTA 5 has led on that this is a place where aliens are most definitely a thing. But the very beginning of the game provides perhaps even more ample evidence of that. The prologue area of North Yankton is much more of an open and explorable area than you might initially think, and if you decide to explore one of its frozen lakes, you'll notice something pretty intriguing. Beneath the frozen surface of the lake, you can spot the frozen corpse of an alien that looks a whole lot like a xenomorph. Here's hoping someday Rockstar makes some weird offshoot DLC for GTA that finally explores these aliens existing on the fringes of the world a bit more deeply. The Ghost of Mount Gordo. Okay, we're not claiming that this is one of GTA 5's lesser known secrets, but given just how creepy it is, we felt like it deserved a place on this list. According to urban legend, stuntman Jock Cranley became fed up with his wife, because reasons, and took her on a seemingly romantic hike up Mount Gordo. Only when he reached the summit, he pushed her off the cliff. Here's the creepy bit though. If you're in or around Mount Gordo during nighttime, for a few hours after midnight, you can actually spot her ghostly apparition through the lens of your weapon's scopes, with the name of her husband Jock written in bloody letters on a nearby rock. The Infinity Killer. Merle, the mystery killer, is yet another one of GTA's background pieces of lore that fans of GTA 5 are most likely familiar with. It serves as a creepy little side quest, which admittedly is all too easy to miss entirely. Merle's demented mind haphazardly scrawls notes that contains hints about the locations of his victims' corpses all across the environment, and finding these and discovering the bodies of all of his victims from all of those years ago can be pretty messed up and strangely thrilling. The Murder Mystery. Less prominent and a lot more obscure than the Infinity Killer mystery is this particular murder mystery, one that the game never prods you toward even a little bit, but if you decide to get into it, man, is it worth it. The murder mystery sees Michael following 4 cryptic hidden clues across Los Santos, and though the final prize you receive, a noir filter for your game, is not all that special, it's more about the journey than the destination. Solving each of these clues and following the trail can be a pretty enjoyable experience. The Mount Chiliad Mystery. Mount Chiliad is a pretty famous and popular location among hardcore fans of GTA 5, and for good reason as well. The murals on top of the mountain present an interesting mystery, and it was one that surprisingly eluded people for a good period of time. A great deal of time and dedication was required on part of some truly devoted fans to be able to crack the mystery once and for all, and of course, eventually they managed to do it. And what did they uncover? Why, aliens and UFOs, of course. What else? Altruist Camp Shadow. This is one that actually ties in with our previous entry on the mystery of the glyphs on top of Mount Chiliad. The Altruist Camp is a pretty bizarre place to visit as it is, with all of its cultists and its strange side activities, but this one, which is incredibly easy to miss, is perhaps right up there along with all those things. At sunset near the altar within the camp, some players have been able to spot a shadow that looks a great deal like the figure that is represented in the murals on top of Mount Chiliad. What sort of connection do these two places have? Well, we can't really say, but if you have any theories, do let us know. Michael's dog. Everyone who's played GTA 5 knows Chop is a good boy, but here's something you may not necessarily be aware of. There are other good boys in GTA 5. For instance, if you look carefully at the picture frames lying about in Michael's house, you'll realize that he used to have a dog, one that he gave away to another family that he and Amanda, his wife, used to be friends with. In a grisly turn of events, that family died in a car crash, as did the dog, but perhaps the dog managed to linger on in some way, because in a set of some particularly bizarre side missions, Franklin can actually come across a weird dog who he seems to understand, who acts as a sort of guardian for people in and around the area. The same dog, or just one that looks a great deal like Michael's good boy? We don't know, might be too much of a coincidence. And that about does it for this video. If you enjoyed what you watched and want to see more from GamingBolt, you can always hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell icon next to it. That way you will never miss any of our videos.